Q6 E-Tron. At first glance, just another premium all-electric Audi SUV, the next step up from the Q4 E-Tron. Actually though, this ambitious upper mid-sized premium badge model could hardly be more significant, thanks to its all-new Porsche co-developed PPE platform that will undergird forthcoming Audi electric models into the foreseeable future.
A technological leap. Audi thinks that's what this Q6 E-Tron is, familiar though the packaging might look. As with the last two generation versions of this car's similarly sized combustion counterpart, the Q5, this Q6 shares much with an equivalent Porsche, in this case the Macan Electric. That obvious rival shares this Q6 E-Tron's new PPE underpinnings, an acronym referencing not COVID protection gear but the Premium Performance Electric platform, which launched with this car and which will underpin the next generation of mid-sized Audis. Built around the kind of ultra-rapid charging 800-volt electrical architecture that the only slightly larger old Q8 E-Tron conspicuously lacked, it claims to be a big step forward. The point, you could argue, from which the technology of electric Audis really starts to get serious. An EV of this model size has been overdue for Audi, a brand that until this point hadn't really had an electric SUV naturally sized to take on key contenders in the upper mid-sized premium segment like the BMW iX and the Mercedes EQE SUV. But the competition in this class is fierce, so this, the first electric Audi to be built at the company's Ingolstadt base, will have to be very good indeed. Is it? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the car and driving road test, to find that out. You don't usually choose an Audi and expect it to handle like a Porsche, but this one might. It does, after all, share the same PPE platform and essentially all the same engineering in the drivetrain as its close VW Group development cousin, the Porsche Macan Electric, but not the same level of steering feel or sharp sporting brio as a back-to-back test between the two cars will doubtless confirm. Having said that though, we can't remember driving a fundamentally better handling mid-sized Audi SUV than this Q6 E-Tron, which is quite an achievement given that this car tips the scales at around 2.4 tons, so that Porsche shared development has at least had some effect. The lineup kicks off with two rear-driven models. One is an entry-level variant using a smaller 83 kWh battery. 75.8 kWh of that is usable, which in SUV form goes 326 miles between charges. It puts out 252 PS or 292 in launch control and makes 62 miles an hour in 7 seconds on the way to the 130 mph top speed that all mainstream Q6s share. The other rear-driven model is confusingly badged Performance, but actually that's just about rather longer driving range, hence the larger 100 kWh battery. 94.9 kWh of that is usable, which offers the longest drive range in the entire Q6 E-Tron SUV lineup, 392 miles. It puts out 306 PS or 326 with launch control and makes 62 in 6.6 seconds. Beyond that is the Quattro four-wheel drive version that we're trying here. That also uses the 100 kWh battery and manages 381 miles of range. It puts out 388 PS and makes 62 in 5.9 seconds. Much the same powertrain also features in the top SQ6 E-Tron, but here the motors are tuned to deliver 490 PS or as much as 517 with launch control engaged, and that takes the car to 62 in just 4.3 seconds on the way to 143 mph. Range from the same battery falls only slightly to 358 miles, and that's mainly due to wider tyres. If that still isn't fast enough, then talk to your dealer instead about the forthcoming RSQ6 Sportback E-Tron model. That's expected to produce over 600 PS. All the EV range figures just quoted can be slightly improved if you're prepared to instead pay the extra for the slightly more aerodynamic Sportback body shape. Will you want to push along through country back doubles in the kind of manner that you might in a Porsche Macan Electric though? Well, it is doubtful. The steering feedback does discourage it, even in its supposedly sharpest dynamic setting. But the body control has a really Porsche-like level of stability, and as we suggested earlier, this Audi can still be rewarding to punt along, particularly in its dual-motor quattro form. With this, the car gets a rear-based torque distribution system, and different front and rear motor sizes mean that different amounts of power can be sent to each axle as required. As you'd expect, that heaviest steering setting gets activated automatically if you select the most engaging of these drive select driver settings, dynamic. The other modes, of course, are comfort, individual and efficiency, with a further efficiency plus option if your charge situation does look pretty desperate. And an off-road plus setting too, which you'll almost certainly, I'm afraid, never use. There is a dynamic setting for the EV drivetrain Note 2, one of three, but neither of them sound very much different. You'll find the E-Tron Sports Sound Generator in the SQ6 to be a bit more pronounced in its settings if you're into audible fakery. As well as the B mode on the drive selector, two settings are also provided for brake regeneration, with the fiercest one offering up to 220 kilowatts of recuperation, and that's supposedly enough to bring the car to a complete stop, although it doesn't seem to do that with this test car. You'll probably try the paddle shifters provided here for brake regeneration once and then switch instead to the auto setting that Audi offers, so you don't have to bother about all that. We haven't mentioned damping, of course. Audi's developed air suspension for this car, which reportedly works very well, but unless you've paid an exorbitant amount for your Q6 e-tron, it'll come fitted instead with conventional non-adaptive passive suspension, the one we have here in fact, which features a new multi-link design at the front. These dampers can sometimes get caught out by porous surfaces, but otherwise they're fine, although they're non-adaptive, and that's a pity because they do feel quite firm. On the highway, this Audi isn't the quietest car in its class, but it is still the accomplished long-distance cruiser that you'd expect it to be. Two Q6 e-tron body styles are offered, the standard SUV, which is our focus here, or the sleeker looking sportback version. Either way, the look is very Audi and clearly a size above the Q4 e-tron. In fact, this car is almost as big as the old Q8 e-tron model from the next class up. Despite that, at 4,771 mils in length, this car is considerably smaller than two of its most obvious rivals, namely the Mercedes EQE SUV, 92 mils longer, and the BMW iX, a full 182 mils longer. Even this Audi's PPE platform design stablemate, the Porsche Macan Electric, is 13 mils longer. But lots has been packed into the long wheelbase, short overhangs design ratio, with a tapering roofline, subtle black roof rails, big D-pillar windows which visually stretch the glasshouse, and Audi's familiar pronounced quattro blisters which run down the rear three-quarter section. Soft shapes are in constant interplay with the creases and the edges, and as usual with Audi EVs, there's a prominent e-tron branded side panel linking black plastic clad arches housing rims of between 19 and 21 inches in size. We've got the 20-inch rims here. As usual with current Audis, the car's model name is to be found on the black B-pillar. Up front, the double-deck lighting face is completely new, with super slim daytime running lights positioned high and the main beam headlamps concealed further down in the bodywork. These can now feature Audi's latest active digital light technology, and they flank the new, more upright interpretation of the brand's familiar e-tron branded single-frame grille. Now this will come body-coloured like this if you've avoided base trim. It's flanked by vertical corner cutouts. At the rear, it's pretty much generic Audi, neat and smart, but unremarkable unless you happen to have bought in at the very top of the range, in which case these LED tail lamps can feature the company's latest digital OLED technology in this full-width tailgate light strip, featuring 6 panels and 360 segments with an active digital light signature. This can work proactively, for example, flashing a red warning triangle in the rear lights if you brake suddenly. Where this car really stands out as an all-new design, though, is inside, where the cabin is completely different from any Audi you'll have seen before. So let's take a look. Sure enough, once you take a seat inside, you'll find yourself surrounded by a sea change in Ingolstadt's interior styling language. Gone are most of the physical buttons, and the lower climate screen, so familiar from mid to large sized Audis of the last decade. Necessarily so, because there's no centre stack for that to sit on. Instead, the brand has introduced a soft wrap design that extends from the doors around a main dashboard sculpted in a digital stage shape that's supposed to resemble the single frame grille. As part of this, an 11.9-inch digital instrument display blends into a 14.5-inch curved control infotainment touchscreen. The only thing that's in any way similar to the Q4 E-Tron that many owners will be graduating up from is a squared off steering wheel. Otherwise, it's trying to be a great deal more high-end than one of those. Whether you'll agree that it is will depend on how far up the trim level and options box hierarchy your budget is prepared to stretch, and whether you share Audi's penchant for the kind of smudge-worthy, shiny black plastic that decorates this strange lower console. It falls away from you into a lower central open bin. Now, most versions of this car will be specified with a dynamic interaction light, which is one of those narrow light strips which stretches from the doors around the base of the windscreen there and lights up in your eye line to emphasize anything from blind spot monitoring to incoming phone calls to powering down the car. Also likely to be fitted to most Q6s is Audi's neat augmented reality head-up display. This projects a far virtual image, creating the impression that the elements shown floating up to 200 meters away. And now, if you need yet more visual stimulation, upper spec versions can also be specified with a further 10.9-inch display ahead of the front seat passenger. This has tech to prevent the driver from being distracted by it while the car's moving, but it can't yet be had with video playback or gaming technology, so currently it does feel a bit pointless. We mentioned the instrument display. After a decade of Audi's virtual cockpit screens, that design has at last been upgraded here, although it's hard to put your finger on exactly where the improvements are. Fiddly haptic steering wheel buttons control what you see, with a central drive assist graphic flanked by outer boxes. The one on the left, that can show consumption, recuperation or trip data. The one on the right is for nav instructions, audio selections or phone settings. Everything else you'll need is on this Android Automotive OS-based central OLED touchscreen. It's a product of the brand's newly developed electronic architecture E3 tech, which is supposed to allow customers to experience vehicle digitalization more directly than was ever possible in an Audi before. This curved monitor has inhaled all the climate controls, although they are at least easily accessible in this band at the bottom of the screen. There are shortcut options along the right-hand frame, and as is the current fashion, the home screen can either display in customizable widgets or with rows of little icons. You get wondrous graphics here, and there's a self-learning Audi voice assistant that's used to control numerous vehicle functions, and it understands more than 800 voice commands. Also, it has an avatar which can show up in this head-up display. Plus, there's also Alexa functionality, regular over-the-air updates, a wireless smartphone interface, and a store section too that gives customers access to a wide range of apps. This is basically a new era of infotainment provision for Audi, with features like a web browser, which could, for example, allow your front seat passenger to reserve a hotel room for you through booking.com as you drive in the direction of your destination, all through the touchscreen. This monitor also comes with the option of a thumping 22-speaker, 830-watt Bang & Olufsen premium sound system with 4 speakers built into the front seat headrests, which enables cabin sound zones to be delineated. As long as you don't mind all the screen-based tech and all the touch-sensitive buttons, which are particularly irritating actually on the steering wheel. There's not much to fault here ergonomically. This door-mounted control panel works quite well, and we are thankful that, unlike Tesla, Audi still thinks that you need a starter button, a gear stick and stalks for the indicators and the wipers. You might find these standard sports seats here a bit firm, and their lack of electric adjustment in a £70,000 car does seem really a bit mean, but they are supportive and they do position you commandingly with good all-round visibility. But is it all quite as premium as Audi thinks it is? The shiny black trimming is unlikely to stand the test of scratches and smudges, and this test car, like others we've heard of, had a few more squeaks and rattles than we'd expected it would have. At least there's plenty of cabin storage space with a decent size for the glove box and door bins, and a deep lidded box between the seats which extends under the centre console there. There are covered cup holders next to the gear selector, and the aforementioned bin at the end of the lower console has twin USB-C ports, a 12-volt socket, a wireless charging mat and, rather weirdly in the current zeitgeist, a removable ashtray. The stretched 2,899mm wheelbase length isn't quite enough to provide for the option of a third seating row, but Q6 customers should be very happy with the provided rear seat space. So let's take a look. Where you'll find that both head and knee room for back seat folk are excellent, aided by front seat back cutouts. A couple of 6-footers will be very comfortable indeed here. Given the need for lower battery placement, you wouldn't expect this seat base to slide, but BMW's iX3 showed half a decade ago that there's no reason why the backrest in an EV of this class can't recline. Sadly, this one doesn't, but it tries to compensate with standard 3-zone climate control and heated seats. Thanks to the big rear quarter-light windows, it feels pretty airy back here, even if you haven't specified this huge panoramic glass roof. And the lowish central tunnel means that you could squash in a third middle-seated adult without too much discomfort if need be. Audi provides netted seat back pockets, decently sized door bins, overhead reading lights by the grab handles, 2 central USB-C ports and an armrest with twin cup holders. Let's finish with a look out back, where the power tailgate rises to reveal a 526 litre space above a deep underfloor compartment. That's 14 litres less than you'll get in this model's Porsche Macan Electric close cousin, but it is fractionally more than you'll get in the Mercedes EQE SUV, and useful 42 litres more than you'll get in the Polestar 3. Thoughtfully, lights are provided on the inner side of the tailgate for nighttime loading, and there's a left side elasticated strap there. You only get a single bag hook though, and just 2 tie down points. There are nets on either side, a bag hook on the right, bright LEDs on both sides, and there's a switch for the retractable tow bar on the left if you specified that. The rear backrest can't be made more vertical to facilitate awkward loads, but it does have a convenient 40-20-40 split, so long items can be pushed through between 2 rear-seated occupants. Audi provides rear backrest retraction catches, and with everything flat, there's up to 1,529 litres of space available. Now, we haven't mentioned yet where you'd store the charging leads. That's because a further 64 litre frunk space beneath the bonnet is provided for that purpose, but disappointingly, you have to pay extra for this. At the time of our test in early 2025, Q6 E-Tron prices started from around £61,000, and that was for this SUV model. There's a £2,500 premium for the alternative swoopier sportback body shape. Either way, there are 2 primary mainstream trim levels, Sport or this S-Line model, which at the time of our test were joined by an even plusher Edition 1 trim level. Prices go north pretty quickly from base level if you scroll through the 3 mainstream drivetrain options that we briefed you on in our driving section. To remind you, the base 292 PS, 82 kilowatt-hour model is the range price starting point, with a £3,500 premium necessary to get the mid-level performance version that you're probably going to want, with the larger 100 kilowatt-hour battery and the uprated 326 PS motor. Here, though, we've chosen to test the 388 PS twin-motor Quattro version, also with that 100 kilowatt-hour battery, which at the time of filming was priced from around £68,000. Beyond that, again with both body shapes, there's the top SQ6 E-Tron, which uprates this Quattro model's drivetrain to 517 PS, and which at the time of our test was only available with Uber Plush Edition 1 trim, hence the high asking price of nearly £94,000. As for rivals, well, the most obvious one is the Porsche Macan Electric model, which shares nearly all this Audi's engineering, but predictably costs more, around £7,000 more in two-wheel drive form, or around £3,000 more in dual-motor four-wheel drive guise. Otherwise, the most direct alternative is the Mercedes EQE SUV. That costs a lot more, though, around £12,000 to £14,000 more, depending on the variant that you're comparing against. You might hope to find a rather better match in BMW's iX, but that comes only in twin motor xDrive four-wheel drive form, so there's really nothing to compare with the two-wheel drive Q6 e-trons that most Audi customers are going to want. If you do, though, want four-wheel drive, you'll be interested to know that BMW's base iX xDrive 45 model costs around £6,000 more than the Q6 e-tron Quattro at the time of filming, although that Munich contender does offer a bit more power. When it comes to rivals, we think it's worth spreading your net a little further. The Polestar 3, that might be worth looking at, but that requires around £8,000 more from you. You could save around £10,000 over the cost of this Audi with a Lexus RZ, while if you're looking at this Q6 e-tron in Quattro form, then there's the Genesis GV70 electrified, and that would save you around £7,000 over the comparably specified Q6 e-tron S-Line model that we're testing here. So those are your main upper mid-sized premium brand EV crossover model choices. Obviously, though, there are a huge number of other more conventionally mid-sized EV crossovers from mainstream makers that we haven't mentioned here, but they compete rather more directly with the next EV model down in the Audi hierarchy, and that's the Q4 e-tron. If, having considered all those options, you conclude that it's a Q6 e-tron that you really want, then you're going to need to know exactly how generous Audi has been, of course, with the standard specs. So let's take a look at that right now. All variants get LED headlights, alloy wheels of at least 19 inches in size, LED taillights, roof rails, power folding mirrors, a high beam assist, an anti-theft alarm, a heat pump to preserve range in cold weather, a powered tailgate, adaptive cruise control, keyless entry, all-round parking sensors with a 360-degree camera, and Audi's Park Assist Plus system, which steers you into spaces. Inside, across the Q6 e-tron range, Audi provides heated front sport seats, twin leather upholstery, an auto-dimming rearview mirror, a heated steering wheel, heated rear seats too, a top view camera, and an 11.9-inch virtual cockpit instrument screen. MediaTek's taken care of by a high-resolution central 14.5-inch OLED touchscreen colour display based around the Android Automotive operating system, and this monitor includes navigation, a 10-speaker 180-watt audio system, and a smartphone interface, and that has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's also Audi Assistant voice control. Now that can be used to control numerous vehicle functions, and that understands more than 800 voice commands. Plus there are over-the-air updates, the latest Audi Connect services, and a store section too that gives customers access to a wide range of apps. To that tally, this S-Line trim level adds larger 20-inch wheels, bespoke bumpers, a body-coloured front grille, rear privacy glass, stainless steel pedals, S-Line door scuff plates, a black headliner, and a special S-Line design for the front seats and the steering wheel. Almost all Sport and S-Line spec Q6 e-tron customers get their cars with the optional sound and vision pack. That's supposed to cost just over £3,000 more, but it's actually included as standard at the time of our test. This gives you an augmented reality head-up display, more powerful USB ports, an improved 16-speaker 830-watt Bang & Olufsen sound system, and the brand's upgraded ambient lighting package plus with its dynamic interaction light and wider 30-colour selection. The top SQ6 Quattro model, of course, gets that added pack and a lot more, although its specification when you view this film may differ from that of Edition 1 spec. That's the only trim level available at the time of this test. That gave you 21-inch wheels with red brake calipers, matrix LED headlights, S adaptive air suspension, digital OLED tail lights, a panoramic sunroof, and a digital key system allowing you to access the car via your phone. Inside, SQ6 spec runs to Napa leather upholstery with dynamic and microfiber dash and door trim, powered steering column adjustment, and an additional 10.9-inch front passenger touch display screen. For mainstream Q6 e-trons, surprisingly, apart from that sound and vision pack we just mentioned, there aren't many options. Those you can have are mostly all fitted here: panoramic sunroof, a folding tow bar, and the front underbonnet storage compartment, which annoyingly Audi makes you pay £500 extra for. Unless you go for the only standard paint colour, a rather dour solid magnet grey, you are going to be paying the brand more for your choice of panel shade, and quite a lot more in the case of the Sonera red metallic finish we have here. For this, Audi wants nearly £1,500 more from you. At least a wide variety of safety and drive assist features do come as standard, hence Audi's top 5-star Euro NCAP rating. That organisation rates this Q6 e-tron at 91% for adult occupant protection, 92% for child occupant protection, and 81% for vulnerable road user protection. In addition to all the usual airbags, braking and stability systems, there's active front assist autonomous braking, distance warning, lane departure warning, intersection assist, traffic sign based speed warning system, side assist blind spot monitoring, and a rear cross traffic assist system to alert you of oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of spaces. There's also fatigue warning, distraction warning, swerve assist, turn assist, a lane change assistant, and exit warning to stop passengers from opening their doors in the face of oncoming traffic. Thoughtful camera assist features we rarely see include rear turn assist, which warns you of traffic undertaking you and approaching from behind as you ready yourself to turn off, and traffic light information, which, if it's activated with a data connection, gives you a recommended speed to be able to pass the next traffic light while it's green, which is rather clever. Now, we gave you the range figures for the Q6 e-tron SUV model in our driving section: 326 miles for the standard version, 392 miles for the performance model, and 381 miles for the Quattro. Also 358 miles for the SQ6. You can do up to 10 miles better by selecting instead the Sportback body shape with any of those variants. All of these times assume that you regularly use the fiercest brake regeneration settings, and also that you frequently engage the most frugal of the provided drive modes. That's efficiency. There is also a further efficiency plus setting, but that's if you're running really low. On our test of this Quattro model, we've been getting around 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. That translates into a range of 294 miles, which is well short, in fact, of the published WLTP figure. Unusually for an EV, though, we found that the efficiency worsened in urban traffic. Audi reckons its electric motors are among the most efficient in the industry. In this car, the brand uses asynchronous motors in the front axle and permanent synchronous motors on the rear. These units feature dry sump oil cooling for better efficiency and for better management of heat. The company reckons these motors offer 62% more power density and 33% greater performance than the earlier generation units, which were fitted to the Q8 E-Tron. Plus, this Q6's standard inclusion of a heat pump will of course preserve driving range in very cold conditions. Audi says in this case it adds around 19 miles of extra range in really cold temperatures. On to charging, which helpfully the car provides ports for on both sides, which is an E-Tron trademark. We wish other brands actually would copy that. Only one port can accept the fastest DC charging rate, but you can AC charge from both sides. We're not sure why it's really necessary for the charging flats to be motorised though. The main news with this Q6 design over the old Q8 E-Tron is the way that this car's new PPE platform has made possible a switch to an 800 volt electrical architecture. That is very significant in a market where key rivals like the BMW iX and the Mercedes EQE SUV still persist with older tech 400 volt setups. The 800 volt system means that unlike those competitors, Audi can use the new generation of ultra-fast public DC chargers, which are springing up all over Europe, but still rarer, unfortunately, than hen's teeth here. It also means that at the right kind of charger, the Q6 e-tron can charge it up to 270 kilowatts and 158 miles of range can be added in as little as 10 minutes. If, as is more likely, of course, you're hooked up to a feebler public charger of up to 135 kilowatts, which can't handle the PPE platform's 800 volt power, a so-called bank charging feature allows this Audi to split its battery in two and run each half at 400 volts, optimizing battery replenishment speed and efficiency, so charging will still be super quick. So how quick is that? Well, the 10 to 80% DC battery replenishment time is 21 minutes at 270 kilowatts. Hooked up to a typical 7.4 kilowatt wall box, the Q6 e-tron AC charges from empty to full in 12 hours in base 82 kilowatt hour form, or in 15 hours with the 100 kilowatt hour battery. The central screen has a charging section which allows you to set departure times, schedule fast charging and find charging locations, or of course, as usual, you can manage all those things remotely via the provided app. At the time of filming, an AC charge to full of the bigger 100 kilowatt hour battery would cost around £30 at typical household rates. If you're converting to an EV from a previous conventional combustion model, you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home, perhaps also, of course, for your office too. There's still complexity around the best kind of charging hardware to choose and exactly who is eligible for a government grant. And obviously the costs can vary greatly depending on your distance from the main meter to the charger and other factors. There's lots of advice out there, of course, to guide you. We consulted plugmein.com. They offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. What else? Well, as usual with an EV, insurance won't be cheap. Groupings range from 44 for the base 82 kilowatt hour sport model to 49 for this Quattro version and 50 for the SQ6. But residual values look likely to be impressive, rated at 57.5% after 3 years and 36,000 miles for the base sport model. A base BMW iX manages only 45%. However, that figure does fall to 50% with the top SQ6. You may have to upgrade Audi's usual unremarkable 3-year 60,000 mile warranty though. There is the usual 8-year 100,000 mile warranty for the battery, and there's a 3-year roadside assistance package too. Service intervals are every 19,000 miles or every 2 years. Audi has come a long way with its EVs since the first one, the underwhelming E-Tron SUV of 2018. That car's heavy design hobbled the subsequent Q8 E-Tron. The E-Tron GT Quattro Gran Turismo style model that followed it was a bit niche, and the smaller Q4 E-Tron has sold well, but it's not quite premium enough. With the Q6 E-Tron though, Audi's got it just about right. Familiar looks disguise a PPE platform 800-volt engineering revolution here. This really is a fresh stage of EV development for the brand, which you get a better feel for in the luxuriously redesigned cabin. Now true, in the Porsche Macan Electric you can get a slightly more dynamic feeling version of this same basic design, but if you don't feel an upper mid-sized EV crossover like this really needs to be that sporty, then this Q6 E-Tron might be for you. It's not particularly arresting to look at, and it could be better value in terms of what you get for the money, but it's slightly cheaper than its most obvious premium badged German rivals, and it offers the kind of polished driving experience that we've come to expect from the brand. For the future, this Q6 will need longer range and some sharper styling, but otherwise all the fundamental things that you really need in an upper mid-sized premium electric SUV are here, at last, in an E-Tron badged Audi.